In level 2 we will be doing polynomial long division, and this is just like the old school long division you used to do back in 3rd grade. Same thing. So what you're going to do is take the part that you're dividing by and put it in the front, and the top of your fraction goes underneath the big old school division symbol. And when you write the expression, you need to have a place for every power. So we have x to the third. We need to have a place for x squared. So I'm going to say plus 0x squared and then minus 8x plus 2. So every power from x to the third down to our constant needs to have a place. And what you're going to do is you're going to start by dividing just the very first variable in the front into the first variable inside. So basically, x times what is x to the third? And that would be x squared. And so I'm going to put x squared above my x squared column. And then you multiply. So I'm going to multiply the x squared by the x, and we get x to the third. And then I'm going to multiply x squared by the 3, and we get plus 3x squared. And you want to line up your powers that are the same. The x to the thirds are going to go in a column, x squared is going in a column, and so on. Okay, and then the next step in long division is to subtract. Now, this is the part where people make the most mistakes. If I'm going to subtract this expression, when I distribute the negative, I'll get x to the third minus x to the third. Those will cancel. But this 3x squared is actually going to become negative 3x squared. So when I subtract those, I'm going to get 0x squared minus 3x squared is negative 3x squared. And then your next step is to bring down the next term. So I bring down minus 8x. And then I divide again. So I go back to the x in the front, and I ask myself, x times what would give me negative 3x squared. So that would be negative 3x. And then I multiply. Negative 3x times x would be negative 3x squared, and it should be the same as the term above it, which it is. And then negative 3x times 3 is negative 9x. Okay, and then our next step is going to be to subtract again. So I'm going to subtract this expression, and again we have to be careful with our signs. My negative 3x squared, and then we get plus 3x, oh this should have been squared, those will cancel, and that should always happen for your first part. And then for the next one, I have negative 8x, but then when I distribute my negative, that's going to be plus 9x, which gives me 1x. And then I bring down my 2. Then I divide again. X times what is x? And that would be a 1. And then I multiply. 1 times x is x, and 1 times 3 is 3. And then I subtract. And the 1x minus x, that cancels. Then 2, distributing the negative, that's going to be minus 3, would give me negative 1. And once your degree down here is less than your degree right here in the front, then you finished, and we call this the remainder. If you get a 0 there, there's no remainder. And then to write our answer, we take the expression on the top that we got, x squared minus 3x plus 1, and then we do plus whatever the remainder is out of whatever expression you have in the front, x plus 3. And that is the answer. Okay, this next example is going to be pretty similar. If you think you got the hang of it, feel free to try it on your own and then just check and see if you got it. But same idea. We put the bottom in the front and the top inside the division symbol. And this time I don't need to worry about putting in an extra placeholder because I have an x to the third, I have an x squared, I have an x, and I have a constant. So I have everything that I need. And so I divide, and I want to know x times what is x to the third? That would be x squared. And then I multiply. X squared times x is x to the third, and x squared times negative 3 is negative 3x squared. And my next step is to subtract. And my x to the thirds cancel. And then distributing that negative, my negative 3x squared becomes plus 3x squared. So negative x squared plus 3x squared would be 2x squared. Then I bring down minus 11x. And then I divide again. X times what is 2x squared? That would be 2x. And then I multiply. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. And then I subtract. My 2x squareds cancel, and 11x, and then negative 6x is going to become plus 6x, so we would get negative 5x, and then bring down the 15. Then I divide again. X times what is negative 5x? That would be minus 5. And I distribute, or multiply. So we multiply 5 times x, and we get negative 5 times x, we get negative 5x. And negative 5 times negative 3 is plus 15. Now we subtract. The minus 5x's cancel. And when you add 15 and then distributing the negative, we get minus 15, we get 0 here. So this is an example where there was no remainder, which means that the expression on the top is factorable. But the answer is going to be x squared, so it's from the top, x squared plus 2x minus 5, and no remainder this time. Here's one last example. Same thing, the expression on the bottom goes in the front, and then the top goes underneath our division symbol, 3x to the fourth minus 5x to the third. It's missing an x squared term, so I'm going to put plus 0x squared, and then minus 20x minus 5. Okay. So I start by dividing. X squared goes into 3x to the fourth, or x squared times what is 3x to the fourth? That would be 3x squared, so I'm going to put it over my x squared column. And then I multiply. 3x squared times x squared is 3x to the fourth. Then I multiply by x, and I get 3x squared times x is positive 3x to the third. And then I multiply by that 3. So we get plus 9x squared. Now I subtract. And my first terms cancel, they should always. And then negative 5x to the third, and then distributing the negative, it's going to be minus 3x to the third. We'll get negative 8x to the third. and then 0x squared, distribute the negative, you'll get minus 9x squared. So we get negative 9x squared, and then I'm going to bring down minus 20x. This time I should have 3 terms down here since I had 3 in the front. Okay, then I divide again, so x squared times what is negative 8x to the third? That would be negative 8x, so that goes up top. And then I multiply. So I do negative 8x times x squared is negative 8x to the third. Negative 8x times x is negative 8x squared. And negative 8x times 3 is minus 24x. Now I subtract. These cancel. And we get 9x squared, and that's going to become plus 8x squared, which is negative x squared. And negative 20x, that's going to become plus 24x, would be plus 4x, and bring down minus 5. And then I divide one more time. And x squared times what is negative x squared? That would be minus 1. And then next I multiply. So negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times x is minus x. Negative 1 times 3 is minus 3. And we subtract. And we get the first terms cancel, and then 4x, that's going to become plus x, which is 5x. And then negative 5, that would become plus 3, so we get minus 2. And that's our remainder. So the answer is going to be 3x squared minus 8x minus 1 plus 5x minus 2 over the part in the front, x squared plus x plus 3. The next part of level 2 is called synthetic division, and it's a shortcut for long division. The problem with synthetic division is sometimes months later we don't remember the steps, but once you have the hang of it, it's pretty simple. And it only works when you're dividing by something that's in the form x minus c, where c is some constant. So we can't use it for every problem. So you have to know long division. But for certain problems and for a lot of problems, you're going to be able to use synthetic division, which is a good trick to have because it's a lot simpler or a lot shorter process. So here's how it works. You take your expression on the bottom and you figure out the number that would make it equal 0. So that would be a negative 3 in this case. That's the number that I put in front. And then I make a shelf and another shelf. So bear with me. Then we take the expression on the top and we just write its coefficients on the top shelf. And so the coefficient of x to the third is 1. Now I need to have a number for every coefficient, so I need, even though x squared is not in the expression, I need a coefficient for x squared. And that would be 0 because there's no term. And then the coefficient for x is negative 8, and then my constant is 2. And here's how it works. You are going to start by bringing down the number, the first number below the line. And then you are going to multiply the number in front by that number below. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, and that goes in this space. Next, you're going to add these two numbers. 0 plus negative 3 is negative 3. Now I'm going to multiply again, I take that number in front, and now I multiply by this number. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Next, I add these two numbers. So negative 8 plus 9 is 1. And then we multiply again. So the front number times the next number, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And then we add these. So 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. And then the way it works is this will always be your remainder. So if we have a 0 there, there's no remainder. And then, so the far right, we'll always start from the right. And then the next one over is going to be your constant term. This is going to be your x term. This would be your x squared term. And if you had more than that, it would keep going. But so the answer is going to be 1x squared, or just x squared, minus 3x plus 1 plus negative 1 over x plus 3, which should be the same answer we got when we did this before using long division. Okay, same thing for this next one. I take the bottom and I figure out what number would make it 0, and that's the number that goes in front. That would be a positive 3 this time. And then I put a shelf and another shelf. On the top shelf, I put the coefficients of the top of my fraction, or the expression that's being divided. And we get 1x to the third minus 1x squared minus 11x plus 15. I didn't have to put in any zeros because I had all my terms there. And then I bring the first number down below the bottom shelf. And I multiply the front number times that number below. And we get 3. Then we add. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. Then we multiply. And we get 6. And then we add. Negative 11 plus 6 is negative 5. Then we multiply. We get negative 15. We add. We get 0. And this time, that means there's no remainder, because we have a 0 on the far right. And that means the top expression is factorable, which comes into play later in level 2, 3, and 4. So the answer is going to be x squared plus 2x minus 5.